Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners360817 and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option. And that's where I'm posting all of my regular recruiting content. The link will also be in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. I'm also appearing with the Horns Down podcast with Chris Griffin, and the Hall of Fame podcast with Jason Watkins on Thursdays, and to discuss the upcoming OU games, and usually on Saturday or Sunday to discuss what has just happened. Due to circumstances beyond my control, we did not have a Texas review, and maybe that's for the best. I'm also appearing on Mondays doing a recruiting Q&A with Chris Griffin. It's about 30 to 35 minutes, Monday nights at 8 p.m. Central Time. To get access to all of this content, in addition to the regular podcast I do weekly, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's where you'll find it. You'll find the live streams under the live section. And the best way to be notified that I'm doing that content is to subscribe to my channel, the YouTube channel. Still going to be doing this weekly audio podcast as well on the podcast platform of choice. Please like and subscribe on your podcast platform of choice. So with all of those intros out of the way, this is episode 143. OU goes back to Florida for a linebacker. So OU's most recent sort of all-American elite defender was obviously Danny Stutsman that OU got from the Miami area. And he was somewhat unheralded when OU first got him. He was like a high 3-star. I think most of the services maybe had him a low 4 by the time he enrolled at Oklahoma, but he wasn't considered an elite, top 200 type player. So why am I giving you that big lead in? Well, OU just got a new verbal commitment for 2026 at linebacker. It's Jacob Curry, who is, again, from the Miami area. He's from Nice High School, which I believe a couple of the OU podcasts indicate that's Tim Tebow's old stomping grounds, I think. And he's a guy, if you've been listening to this podcast, I've been tracking this player for about 2 months, ever since OU offered him. And when OU offered him, I indicated I loved his film, that this was a player that strongly had really good film and was strongly underrated, if I can use that as a term. And I was very happy to see OU offer him, and I thought it was a very good offer. And he was like a 5'6", 3-star at that time, verbal to Northwestern. So a lot of the 3-star what are we doing? Why aren't we recruiting better ranked players? A lot of that nonsense basically went out after Curry got his offer, and I was beating the drum. Look at the film, look at the film, look at the film. So he decommitted from Northwestern pretty soon after he got his OU offer. And then things really started picking up, and he got offers from Miami, FSU, Ohio State, probably some other schools that I'm not going to reference because I think those 3 names cover the gamut in terms of that he became a highly sought-after prospect. If Ohio State and Miami are after you, and FSU, that tells me all I need to know in terms of other schools, other defenses, defensive coordinator, linebacker coaches, seeing what the OU guys saw on film. So an interesting tidbit was OU Insider posted that Nate Dreiling actually offered Curry, I think 2 years ago when he was at New Mexico. I think I have that right. Well, we should. I think that's correct. Basically, wherever Nate Dreiling was 2 years ago, he basically offered Jacob Curry. So, what is OU getting in Jacob Curry? Well, let's just talk about his first game after verbaling to Oklahoma that got posted all over Twitter if you didn't see it. So he had 15 tackles. That's good production. 4 sacks, 5 tackles for loss, 1 pass deflection, and 3 QB hurries. So he's basically a one-man wrecking crew out there with those kind of stats. And when you look at his senior film, which has been posted, the first 5 games, it's as good. His junior film was good. His senior film is much better. He's flashing basically an elite will linebacker kind of game. Sideline to sideline speed, power. He tackles. He's an excellent blitzer. But he also, sometimes when you watch linebacker film, you're like, okay, well, what does he do in space? Curry's very comfortable dropping back and covering players. He shows excellent coverage skills. In fact, the 247, one of the 247 analysts was talking about how they watched a game where Curry was covering a top 200 type wide receiver in the game frequently and was doing a good job in coverage. So he probably could play him at Cheetah too. He's 6'1", 208 right now. Easily, he's got a long, lean frame, can easily move it in the 225, 230 range. So that's why I think will linebacker. But he could also probably play Cheetah as well because he's that versatile in both coverage, blitzing, short pass game coverage kind of skills, attacking. And he attacks. He's an attacking player. So I think both of those are available. OU has another player who's very similar in the class. Ja'Cory Smith from Arkansas, who's probably about 6'1", 210 himself. Both probable will linebackers, although, like I said, they do have some positional versatility there. Don't think he's a Mike. Don't think you can get into that 235, 240 range. That's not where I see his future being, but, you never know. And this gives OU a 3 linebacker class. Last 2 classes, OU is undersigned at linebacker. Zach Alley, wasn't a good recruiter. Let's just call it what it was. He didn't close on anybody, and then he left. And then the year before, OU was just struggling to had signed a bunch of linebackers in 23. So they kind of were getting a smaller class in the 24 class. It was just James Nesta. They did try and recruit some other linebackers, but really it was kind of hard because OU had just signed a big class. The Sam O, Lewis Carter class. So OU had signed quite a few kids from that class. So from that perspective, and they also added Taylor Hine late, who's kind of a linebacker. So it was kind of hard in the following year, 2023 to 2024 to get the guys that they really wanted. The 2023 class had 4 backers plus the guy Picotti, who ended up, I think, going to Central Florida, I think. So OU had a big linebacker class. So that explained why the 2024 linebacker class was smaller. But really, 2025 was small too. It was only Marcus James, who I still think possibly could end up as an edge player with his size, frame, and athletic ability. Although OU's pretty loaded at young defensive ends in the program. So a 3 linebacker class in this class is important. I kind of said it last week. I'll repeat it for those that missed the episode. Kind of concerned that OU should be looking for a Mike linebacker in this class. That Bo Jandro hasn't played yet. He missed significant parts of his junior year. Hasn't played yet his senior year. Just, some injury history in high school. Kind of a red flag these days. So I would like for OU to perhaps sign another linebacker if someone is available that they like, that becomes available through whatever process that is. But that's kind of where I'm at. So really like Jacob, really love his film. Good addition. He's now a 4-star on Rivals. I could see him easily being a low 4-star on 247 and being a top 300, top 350 type guy. He has that kind of film. That's probably realistically where he should be. Could sneak into the top 200 with a good senior year, but I think that's probably the kind of the limit of where he is. 2027 QB update. Still no update. It's kind of a strange situation, becoming stranger by the day. Would love to see somebody with a new offer show up for the Ole Miss game or the Missouri game or even the LSU game. I'm not sure flipping Peyton Houston is practical or feasible, or that's what OU's even doing. But got to get some guys, got to get a couple of offers and get some guys on campus before the end of the year, at least one or two. Now, no news there, but out of the Penn State firing, we have a new name for 2026 and a new offer to follow. It is Ja'Sir Rogers. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. He is a 5'11", maybe a little shorter, 175-pound wide receiver from, I believe, the Delaware area. He's a Penn State decommitment, and OU has offered him and is apparently going all in on trying to get him on campus. I've watched his film. He's very fast. He's got serious home run speed. Can completely understand why OU's offering him. He would be slightly different than the other guys that OU has recruited so far. Would like to think OU could get him in for the Ole Miss game. Not sure that's possible, but that's where I would like to see if OU's going to be able to push for something. So, firings and decommits. So, Penn State fired James Franklin and has had probably about a dozen kids decommit or open their recruiting back up. Is OU going to make any hay here? Well, the only name that they were really connected to prior to this was Tavion Bryant. And he already decommitted from Rutgers, and OU didn't seem to be making any big push. So will they make a push on this second decommitment? Well, he says he's open. He's still committed, but he's reopened his recruiting. So, we can parse semantics all we want, but he's open for business. There's an interview. He's done a couple of interviews. He's mentioning lots of schools. He's getting lots of new offers. I don't see OU being mentioned anywhere. So I don't think that's really realistic. The Rogers kid, yep, OU's definitely going after him. The 2027 kids, haven't seen OU make any new offers out there, but there's probably some kids that they're interested in. Penn State was off to a big class for 2027. So this is a big story to watch because there's lots of kids in play now that a lot of schools are going after. Penn State may not find, too many guys left still open to them from their 2026 class by the time they hire somebody. Lots going to happen. We'll see. It'll be an interesting case study. And, can you fire a coach and reclaim your commits or not? OU in 2021, when Lincoln walked away, lost a bunch of their better recruits and, was able to keep some key guys like Kobe McKenzie, Kip Lewis, but lost momentum with players like MJJ, lost Derek Moore, who's now been is a really good defensive end for Michigan, and lost the defensive tackle prospect who's three names I can't pull right now, and he plays for South Carolina now, so we'll see him on Saturday. He went to Texas A&M instead. Those are probably the biggest losses. Obviously, OU lost Malachi Nelson, which doesn't look like much of a loss at this point. They lost a couple of guys for the 2022 class, 2023 class, actually, the class ahead, the Jackson Arnold class. Lost some guys in that class that, some bigger losses there in terms of Makai Lemon, definitely. And they lost the wide receiver from Florida, who's now at Ohio State, who's doing pretty well with that roster. So we'll see what Penn State can do. So the other news out there is floating is I'm finding it hard to believe Luke Fickell is going to last too much longer at Wisco. They're losing games left and right. They've got losses coming up. They've got playing teams that are more talented with better quarterbacks. So I think Wisconsin's looking at some more losses. So I think Luke Fickell is probably on his way out. That could open up Jaden Petit for OU if he was still interested. OU was still interested. UF, obviously, we know the names there. Lots of players that OU was interested in. If that became available, I'd run after their middle linebacker recruit. I believe it's Malik. I think it's Malik Mitchell. I'd run after him based upon the film I saw of him a year and a half ago. So, if something happens, you got re-involved, I'd have to look at his updated film. But he looked like a great prospect when OU offered him. And obviously, Davion Gross, Desmond Green, some other players connected to OU who had visited OU. And then you got Auburn, which, the Vandy game is, if they lose to Vandy, that's 4 losses in a row with Alabama still coming up on their schedule. I think it would be very hard for Hugh Freeze to survive that. They're throwing money around and getting visits and getting commits, but we'll see what happens with the Auburn job as well. I don't know if there's any other bigger jobs out there, but if you just had Wisco, UF, and Auburn open up, that could open up all kinds of things and make really the recruiting story of 2026 just turn on its head with just a decommit buffet and teams scrambling to try and pick up some of the elite pieces from those various classes. There are D-line, O-line, playmakers on the Auburn and UF verbal list. There are elite guys that anybody in the SEC would want. So that's firings into such. 2026, names left to watch. Well, with Jacob Curry, we're one less name. We're at 21 verbal commitments. So Daniel McMorris is the next name. I think he visits Texas Tech this weekend. Then he's going to be at OU for the Ole Miss game. And then on Halloween, he's going to announce his commitment. Still like where OU is. Gives OU 3 offensive linemen, left tackle, right tackle, and you got Noah Best interior, maybe at center. Would, again, as I mentioned last week, like to see OU pick up another interior player. Ideally 2 guys, if they could make it work. Those names and those visits are still TBD. Not seeing a ton of action yet, but you wonder if OU's sitting back waiting for some decommit action. So the Ole Miss weekend is not going to be as big as the Michigan weekend. I don't think we may not see as big a weekend as that anytime soon. But it might be as big as the Auburn weekend. We could see 20, 25, 30 legit prospects from 2026. I mean, uncommitted prospects. I think the OU verbal commitments will be back on campus. That can come. But you could see 20 to 25 guys with offers from 2027, 2026, and 2028 visiting. That's entirely possible. Could see some offers going out as well to the kids. OU likes to offer some kids when they visit, which is fine, with some of the 27, 28 kids. OU's got time. There's not a massive rush in season. You just want as many guys as you really want to have offers heading into spring, junior days, and things like that. So here's 4 names that have showed up on social media that look like they're going to be in Norman. Things could change, obviously. Several of these guys have talked about this in multiple interviews. So the first one is Crew Jones, the defensive end from Utah that I've talked about, 6'4", 230. Steve Wiltfong, about a month ago, put in a prediction for him to verbal to OU. I don't know if that's still as high on – it still has – or they still have that sort of confidence level. But his first visit to Norman for the fall, he wasn't in for any of the earlier games. That could be a story to track, an interesting story to watch. Then Arizona DB Mikiel Davis, I think I'm saying that right. He's a cornerback. 247 really likes him. They have him ranked at a pretty high level. Let me just pull up that information here. Yep, 247 thinks he's a top 300. The composite has him in the top 300 as a 4-star. 5'11", 170. Says OU's recruiting him as a nickelback, which is kind of interesting. Then a running back from California from Jackson Stokes, like 5'9", 5'10", 180 pounds. He's pretty highly rated on the boards. He's from Chatsworth, California. Remember, OU has Stacy Ford, who's pushing, giving OU a lot of connections in California. OU's trying to make a move in Cali for players. That's a trend line that's pretty obvious out there. Let me just see here. Scrolling through all of OU's wide receiver offers. It takes a little bit to get to. Yeah, he's Jackson Stokes is from Chatsworth. He looks like he's probably in the top 400 level, high 3-star. I'll have to go watch his film next week and give you guys an update, presuming that he follows through on that visit. Then UT edge defender, Verbal. He's an edge defender, big outside linebacker. Verbal to UT, to Texas. Taven Epps from California. He's also says he's coming in for a visit. He's making a number of visits around the country. I'm still committed to Texas, but I'm taking visits. That's kind of the stand he's taking. He looks really good on film. I watched his junior film a while ago, about a month ago, when it became obvious that he was talking about making an OU visit. So he's pretty impressive. He's pretty impressive on film. That would be an interesting name to watch if he continues to follow through with an OU visit. We'll probably see more names, but that's the names we have right now. Like I said, it's a small list, but definitely, I think by the time next week, I'll have more names on that list, and I think by the time the weekend's over, we'll have probably a good list of 20 players that OU has brought in for unofficial visits. OU's made one new offer recently, and that was to Cash Colbaugh. Again, best guess on the name. He's a teammate of Jacob Curry's. He's a safety from Florida. He's listed at 6 foot. He's a 2027 prospect. Listed at 6 foot, 180 pounds. He might be closer to 5'11". I just watched his junior film that he posted. It's really good. He's very confident in coverage, does a good job in recovery, good speed sideline to sideline, aggressively attacks the short passing game, and appears to have good ball skills. He has two excellent interceptions in his highlights from the first 5 games of this year. So an interesting name to track. Obviously, with OU hopefully signing Jacob Curry, OU could have a hook there. Has a hook there in terms of Curry being his teammate. So player to watch. I don't really have a ranking on him right now. That's not too uncommon with 2027 as it stands. But player to track, someone to keep an eye on. Maybe down the road if he comes to a game with Jacob sometime later this fall. Definitely a name to keep an eye on for an unofficial visit. OU still work in Florida fairly heavily as well. Kind of a short week this week with OU not having a chance to host any commits in the fall. That's kind of where a lot of our action comes from in recruiting. Unofficial visitors, official visitors, news and traffic. So Texas game, OU couldn't offer anybody. They're going to South Carolina. Obviously not inviting anybody to that game. So we'll have more action hopefully next week with the 10-25 Ole Miss game. But like I said, don't. Jacob Curry's a big addition. That's a nice addition for OU at a position of need. Smith and Curry instantly walk on the campus and give OU depth at the will linebacker spot. I think both of them probably could redshirt if they enroll early and put some weight on, or definitely could be special teams demons. Like I said, I'm still in a holding mode with Bo Jandreau. I need to see some senior film. So hopefully Bo gets on the field this week and we can see him. His brother Nico is playing fine at safety cheetah. That offer still makes complete sense. That position still makes complete sense. But it would be nice if we could see Bo Jandreau on the field. So thanks for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your audio platform of choice. Make sure you subscribe to the Sooners 360 channel on YouTube. Just pull up YouTube in the search box, type in Sooners 360, and you will have a link directly to the channel. You'll see the wagon wheel, and you'll know that's the Sooners 360 channel. Also, one last pitch, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more content. The Sooners 360 on Patreon is how I get some additional revenue to keep this podcast going. So if you like this podcast, please give us a try on Patreon. Like I said, there's a trial offer for 7 days. It's free, so you can get a sense of what you might be getting. Thanks, everyone, and we'll be back next week.